Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Our Galactic Family podcast. My name's John Wilkinson, and I channel a group that I call my brothers and sisters from across the stars. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you the second lesson of a class called the Ascension Project, Waking Up to Your New Reality. I'd like to invite you now to just take a moment and get comfortable. And the lesson will begin shortly. This channeled class has been created in partnership with my guides, a group I call my brothers and sisters from across the stars. In this lesson, my guides will be deepening our understanding of karma to assist each and every one of us in creating the tools we need to release our karma. Today's lesson is called The Progression of Your Soul. Continuing on our last lesson on releasing karma, we would like to talk to you today about the progression of your soul and how karma is a learning tool. We know for many of you it's easy to judge yourself or others as you tend to make assumptions based on how you see events unfolding in your reality, assuming that if something bad is happening to somebody, they must have done something wrong or bad to deserve what's happening in their lives. We would like to offer you an analogy to help you understand karma. If you could take a moment and imagine that when you incarnate in the physical reality, that you come here with a backpack. And in this backpack is all of your karma that you've agreed to work through or work out. Now imagine that each lesson that you learn in your life allows you to release some of your karma. And each lesson is represented by a stone in this backpack. And it is the weight of this backpack that keeps you coming back again and again until you're able to take enough stones out of your backpack that will allow you to shift or ascend to a new reality. Now, the laws of your reality dictate that when you learn a lesson and successfully release your karma, you get to take a stone out of your backpack, and thus you become lighter, allowing you to move closer to ascending to a new reality that is of a higher density, a higher frequency. However, the laws of your reality also dictate to you that if you intentionally harm someone or do something that creates or adds to this reality in a negative way, perhaps creating more fear, pain, or suffering, then you get to put a stone back into your backpack, thus anchoring you to this reality, giving you something to work through before you're able to ascend or shift to a reality of a higher density or higher frequency. The goal of every life on Earth is to take out more stones than you put in. We understand that no life is perfect, and mistakes will most likely certainly be made. So be kind to yourself if your life did not go as well as you thought it should. If you find yourself adding a few more stones to your backpack than you would like, you can always take those stones out in this life if you are willing. If you could only see the progression that you have made over many lifetimes, it would fill many of you with a sense of pride and accomplishment. So please don't be too hard on yourself if things don't feel like they're working out. And don't be so quick to judge someone else, because they may just be working on a difficult life lesson that will help them take a stone out of their backpack that they carry. So why is it that so many of you have such a hard time on Earth, while others seem to live lives that seem so easy? The first thing that we would like to emphasize is no two lives will ever be the same. What you need to understand first and foremost before you incarnate is you decide what stones to put in your backpack. In other words, you decide how heavy a load you will carry and how many lessons you will try and learn. So the question before you is, why do some people seem to have an easier life? Well, the first possibility is they chose to take it slower than you did in this life, and they put fewer stones in their backpack. Thus, their life may seem to be a lot easier than the life you are living. And you may have decided to put too many stones in your backpack. And the sheer weight of the backpack you carry can feel like it's too big a load for you. Some of you just try and do too much too quickly. And what occurs is the weight of taking on too much ends up having a negative effect. Because the lessons seem to be coming one after another, it can easily derail your life if you're not prepared. And it's very easy for you then to become overwhelmed as you tend to focus or even obsess about all the pain and the suffering you are experiencing as you compare your life to somebody else's who seems to have such an amazing, easy life. And you can even become resentful, even angry. How come they have it easy? How come I have to suffer? And that in itself can end up creating and adding more stones to your backpack if you make choices that are negative. What can happen, and what does happen with so many of you, is that the weight of your karma, which feels like a burden, is more than you can handle, and you become angry and resentful. And you end up living lives that create the wrong kinds of experiences that ends up adding stone after stone to your backpack. And it may feel like you're actually going backwards. You put more stones than you're taking out. And yes, this can happen. We understand the frustration many feel is you want to get rid of your karma. But the reality is some of you just took on too big of a load. And the goal is to see positive movement, progression in your soul's development. While all lives, even the ones where you add more stones to your backpack than you take out, have value, as you learn what not to do, it's always preferred to see you remove more stones than you put into your backpack. Knowing this, wouldn't the best course of action for you, if this rings true, is to focus on one thing at a time? We know how many of you feel this sense of urgency, panicked even, and you feel like if you don't get it all done right now, you're going to be left behind in some way. Like it's time for you to graduate and move on to the next grade, but you still need to take more classes in order to learn everything that this current grade has to offer you. And without finishing all the classes, you won't be ready for the next grade. We need to reassure you, you all have enough time. There is enough time to release your karma and learn one lesson at a time. Let's just take a moment together and take a breath. For some of you may find that your minds are racing right now in this moment. We would like to elaborate further on removing the stones from the backpack you carry. As you walk through your life, you will most likely encounter some situations, some experiences that create friction. That is something that you need to face and overcome. That has within it a lesson that teaches you about the true nature of who you really are and what you're here to do. An example may be that some of you struggle with abundance, And maybe you struggle with it because in another life, you were, shall we say, overly abundant. And because of this, you may have made some choices that added too many stones to your backpack. So you decided, I'm going to put this limitation on myself so that I could understand and experience what it's like to struggle being abundant, to be in lack, because you may have mistreated people who weren't abundant. In other words, you misused it. And a part of your karma was to use your abundance in this life to help people who struggle with abundance, so they could go on to use their abundance to create things in this reality that would assist humanity. And it is through the understanding of what it feels like to struggle with abundance and learn how to overcome that limitation and become abundant and prosperous, you acquire the perspective of gratitude and appreciation for everything you have, because you know what it feels like to not be abundant in this life. And because of your experiences of not being abundant and learning about that limitation and overcoming it, understanding what it's like to live in lack and struggle, you have a new appreciation, and you make the choice to use your abundance, your prosperity, to assist people rather than use your abundance in a negative way. And all of this was part of a grand design to not only allow you to do some good in this reality, but also to learn some lessons, repaying your karma, if you will, releasing it, and taking out a stone out of your backpack and releasing that karma once and for all. Do you now have a better understanding of how it all works? But there is another rule of this reality that you all must follow. The rule is you don't get to know any of this. You agree to forget that this is all part of a plan to help you release your karma. Some of you believe, at least from your point of view, it would be so much easier if you could just remember everything. All the past lives, all the lessons, everything you agreed to do. But the truth is, all of this is done this way for a very good reason. Firstly, because the human mind in its current state couldn't handle all the volumes of information of all that you are, every life you've lived, every dimension you existed. It would all be too much, and it would overwhelm you. What does end up happening is you would only take with you carefully selected information. But the kicker is you don't get to have all the information all at once, simply because it will only make sense to you once you reach a certain point in your life, in your development. If you had all the information ahead of time, it might actually stop you from having the experience you need to have in order to become who you need to become, that will eventually allow you to take out a stone out of your backpack, which then releases your karma. Let's dive into this a little deeper, just for a moment. Let's say for you to go on and do something that would eventually help a lot of people and release your karma, you needed to face a difficult trial or learn a painful life lesson. And for some, this does in fact take years to move through. Now, for most of you, if you knew what was going to happen, that you were going to go through all of this pain and suffering, you would avoid the situation that created it altogether. And you would probably make a different choice so that you could save yourself from experiencing any pain at all. This seems very logical and makes sense to you. But the truth is, without that pain, that suffering, you don't become who you need to become. In order to create what you came here to create, essentially, without that difficult trial or painful life lesson, you don't end up releasing your karma. And that experience actually helps shape and mold you into another version of you that feels inspired to go do this thing. Now, many of you are sitting there saying, oh, I'd still experience all that pain, especially if I knew what was on the other side. But many wouldn't. So you see, there is wisdom in only giving you some information, and only the information that you need to keep you moving, but never too much that you won't move at all. Because sometimes too much information might just stop you from moving any further along the path you agreed to walk. We are your brothers and sisters from across the stars. And it is our sincere hope that today's lesson helps each and every one of you remove the stones out of the backpack you carry, allowing you to release your karma.